1994 youth trip to Prasanthi Nilayam. Sayouth leader Brother Bernard Gilliman asked Swami directly on a previous trip if he would allow a New Zealand youth group to see him. Swami gave permission, and this set in motion the 18 months of preparation with study cycles every Wednesday night in the Auckland region, and in the Wellington region the youth meeting frequently met in depth to study Swami's teachings on the 1990 summer showers. Along with the regular Sunday youth group meetings, this helped to provide a framework of understanding and grounding for a trip of a lifetime. Due to different commitments, the group had two arrival dates into India. The first group arrived on the 20th of November 1994 to the festivities of Swami's 69th birthday celebrations, while the second group arrived on the 5th of December. Swami called the group for the first interview in the afternoon of the 27th of November. Swami spoke about the mind, the different types of knowledge, self-confidence, devotion, different types of teachers, the importance of love, and the desire for God. On the second interview, which was on the 6th of December in the morning, Swami took the group into the inner interview room and spoke about the Manava, which is the man is not new, fundamental love, think of God, what is purity, the negative effects of sugar, and sealing on desires. Swami then called the boys only for the third interview on the 13th of December in the afternoon. Topics discussed included how to love God, what is anger, how to control desires, confidence in Atma, sacrifice, follow the master, on marriage, dreams, and the meaning of watch. Swami called the boys only again on the fourth interview, and this was on the 27th of December in the morning. Topics included the importance of discipline, the meaning of study, truth, senses, food, importance of purity, patience, concentration, and on leadership. Swami then called the youth girls and gave them Padam Namaskar and Prasadam. The group then left India on 29th of December and returned to New Zealand.
So Ram, good evening. How's it going? Good. Nice to see you here. It's going to be an intimate evening, and obviously a bit of sharing about a trip we had 22 years ago. So it's been a long time. But actually, this was inspired by Viva. She thought, why don't you guys and girls get together and share about something that was really, unique and very special. So so here we are. Firstly, probably a few introductions, because you may not know everyone. So, so how the evening's going to run is we've got like our kind of like a TV hosts. We've got Arti and Viva will be. They'll be kind of guiding the evening, basically, so we don't get off track and talk a lot. Okay, so she's gonna structure the evenings to make it interesting and fun as well. So on our trip, there was about 30 of us back in the day. There was 9 ladies. Sashi Reddy is one of them. Thank you for making it tonight, Sashi. Other girls we've lost touch with, or they're overseas, or time does that. The gents able to make it tonight. Ritesh. We have a special guest from Australia, Arunesh. Thank you, Arunesh, for flying especially for this event. Jason, Yogesh, and our official photographer on this trip, Brother Biku. And the images you see, he'll talk a bit about these photos, but back in the day they were all on film. There was no digital things then, so he went to a lot of effort to bring these these images up to what we see. But he'll share a bit more about that. So we'll just hand it over to our hosts, and they'll lead the way.
So before we all start and get into the deeper side of the interview, the messages, we thought, could you start by telling us a little bit about the preparation that took place before the trip?
I was very new to the group at the time, if I remember correctly. But as I joined the youth group, then this trip, we started talking about the trip, and this topic came up about 1990 summer shower. So then we started, apart from the Sunday normal youth group, and we had a special one on Wednesday, where all the adults used to meet. Excuse me. And all I remember is we spent about 18 months studying 1990 summer showers. And as far as I knew, that I never missed any session of it, because just the way the whole summer shower was laid out, one chapter after the other, it leads you into it, that you're just so glued to it. It's just incredible. And during our trip, Swami reassured every bit of it. And when I say every bit of it, from almost each one of us. So, there was a long journey.
Bernard Gilliman, who was our leader at the time, leading our youth and organising it, he was very good at unpacking the message and getting us to really think deeply about it. And that was inspiring, and that drew us, as Yogi said, it drew us to come back every Wednesday to study these. And I think we should acknowledge him, that he did a really good job of preparing the way for us, and inspiring us, and helping us to strive for those ideals. But Ritesh, you were saying something about the summer showers, how add to it.
It was quite interesting how we came across summer showers, because for those that don't know about summer showers 1990, Swami used to do summer showers every year during the 70s. And after 1979, he stopped. And there was no summer showers right throughout the 1980s. And all of a sudden, in 1990, while he was in Bangalore, he spontaneously started another summer showers. And he did it over 15 days. And before he started, he explained to the students and everyone that was able to attend there, that over the next 15 days, what I'm about to tell you is what the ancient sages and saints, the knowledge that they used to meditate on for hundreds of years, I'm going to be giving to you over the next 15 days. So if you think about it, we always hear about these sages and saints that used to meditate for God knows how long. There used to be anthills forming all over them. What was the knowledge that they were striving to know, that they put themselves through such penance? It was the knowledge that Swami gave throughout that Summer Showers 1990 discourse. Now, when we were studying it, we didn't know all this, because it was actually recommended to us, or recommended to Bernard actually, at the time, by Professor Venkataraman, that was a good topic for us to study and do our sadhana on. So if anyone is interested, those books are available at the side library, but it tells you about everything to do with how to live your life, what to eat, how to look after your body, the purpose of life, sealing on desires, everything you can think of, all condensed into one book. And it's over, I think, about 15 or 16 chapters. And so, like, we were in Wellington. I was actually based in Wellington at the time. There were 8 of us from Wellington that came on the trip. And And it was really good because what summer showers was actually quite difficult to understand because it had a lot of Sanskrit words, etc. So Bernard used to actually sit down and type out chapter by chapter and translate the Sanskrit words. And so we studied that in Wellington as a group as well. There was about 8 of us from Wellington. We used to study that every single week over just over 12 months for us. And sometimes you'd get only through barely a paragraph or 2 paragraphs through the entire hour and a half that you would spend time doing it. And it wasn't just reading it. We did our best to actually practice whatever we were able to practice from those books. And Swami just reinforced those teachings to us during every one of those interviews. Things he talked about just elaborated on the teaching from those books. And so it made the whole sadhana for us worthwhile. Some of the other things we used to try and do, I personally used to try and do, is try and do this light meditation as part of my sadhana. And I was struggling, I'll be honest. My mind just jumps all over the show. But I was forcing myself to do it because I read Swami said, you know, meditation's really good, so you should do it. And so I was doing it, and was struggling with it. And during one of the interviews, Swami said to us, you know, boys, don't do meditation. Go do some work. Said it to me. But it just goes to show that you know, he knew what were our strengths, what was our weaknesses, and what's the right path for each of us. So I'm not telling you all not to do meditation. It's just one of those things that came out during the interviews.
Yeah, Sarah, Uncle Marcus, I see you there. Auntie Girija, I know some of you guys well. Some I'm meeting for the first time, so welcome. I left Australia in 1998, so it's been a while for me, but it's good to come together and talk to the boys. There's some of the youth in Australia at the moment, which we keep in touch. But in terms of preparation, there are 2 sorts of youth, if I can talk about one, you know, the dedicated, serious, Bal Vikash, that came through the ranks. And then there's the other type, which I think I was one of them. We just crashed the party because we all wanted to go overseas. And we hadn't really been doing it. And especially my brother, he just wanted to buy a car stereo. So, and our parents said to us, well, if you go to the youth, you've got to follow the protocol. We didn't know what the protocol was, but apparently you had to go to these Wednesday study circles. So a few of us had to go, and there was this checklist of how to be, I guess, if you're a youth. One was to dress in white, which I refuse, and I still don't do that. But one of the things I do remember is Auntie Girija, you know, she's got some wonderful boys, but we had practice camps, if you guys remember, where we'd go into like Auntie Girija's house, I remember, for 3 nights, and 2 nights, and live like we were going to do in Prasanthi. So, you know, basic food, and study circles, and just...
I'm not sure about the basic food. It's done very well for us.
That's true. It was like the All Blacks getting into camp, you know. It was one of those really tough. It was really grueling for some of us. You know, sleeping next to 15 boys was something we never used to do. So, and we used to all do that. But the study circle started to focus on mind. We figured if we don't do this, we'll be out. Bernard still didn't have a final list, so we had to be pretty well behaved. And you know, we had to go through and get the tick in the camp. We had to actually contribute as part of a team. And I think the biggest thing that came out was the teamwork that came through. I think that showed in Prasanthi. And I think that's what the key preparation was. And we were all overweight, so we got fit. And yeah, so it was really exciting, the preparation. That's all I remember, Viva. Just the good parts.
Did you say you used to go to the gym as well?
Yeah, a few of the boys were overweight, like Venkat. I don't know if you guys know Venkat. He'd probably kill me, but yeah, he had a big gut. He still does. And we thought we'd go running. So we did go running, actually. There's another guy who's not here, Pranil. I don't know if you remember. We used to go to university and we used to head down to George to do some walking. We'd never finish, but we felt mentally excited. So we did.
Okay, so that was nice preparation. What was it like to be in a group in Prasanthi? Also the discipline of the group.
There was all sorts of things going on in Prasanthi, and for me, the trip started perhaps slightly differently from everyone else, because 3 weeks prior to leaving, I broke my leg and had a cast on. And so headed over to Prasanthi, you know, they were asking me, so you're going to still come? I said, well, of course I'm coming. You're just going to have to put up with me and carry my bag for me. Unfortunately, before I left, the medical doctor or whatever, staff, cut a strip, like an opening all the way down my cast, so that if it swelled on the plane, I wouldn't be uncomfortable. And this proved to be very handy when I got to India, because after 3 weeks, when we were there for 6 weeks. So we arrived just before Swami's birthday, and we were there right through till just after Christmas. I remember after 3 weeks hobbling around and going to darshan, sitting at the very back while all these guys sat in the front and chatted to Swami, and I was thinking, oh crikey, I'm missing out here. After 3 weeks, it's like, right, it's time to get this cast off. I've had it on for 6 weeks now. They say 6 weeks is enough to let it mend itself. So I went down to the local hospital, and Bernard and Sunil came with me, and we sat in the waiting lines to go in to see this doctor, to get it removed. Little did we know we were in the wrong line, because when we finally got there after an hour and a half of waiting, and this is over our lunch break, so we were missing our lunch and we were waiting, we were trying to get it all done before our afternoon darshan. I got in there, and the guy said, oh, you need to go down the hallway to the one down there. You go sit there. So I got passed on to another line, which was taking even longer to process. And by that stage, Sunil and Bernard said, Jace, we're going to leave you to it. We're going back for darshan. And I said, fair enough, you guys go. And I gave up too, actually, so I ended up hobbling back to get into the darshan right just before Swami came out. And after that, I thought, blow this. So I went back to the room and had a shower, and this time didn't put a plastic bag around it, around the cast, and let the water soak into it, and pulled it apart myself. I came out with this cast, and Venkat found it. I sort of passed it to him as I was trying to keep balance, and apparently he went out to the top of the veranda and threw it off. So what happened?
It was just funny, Uncle Richard used to always he knew that Jason had a cast. And anyway, I think Kundan or someone threw it from up the top, and it landed up like upside, as if the leg is sticking up. And here Uncle Richard
With a barrel, right?
Yeah, with a barrel. Uncle Richard comes as in usual manner, and then we're all watching from upstairs, and he looks at this cast, it's almost like the leg part sticking up. And he looks upstairs as if he's really curious that his Jason's blowing the bit there. And, it was just so funny to watch that moment, the curiosity on his face. It was just unreal that we just couldn't stop laughing. And then he realized that it was just a cast that was in there, not Jason.
I don't know if you guys remember, I was just thinking about this before. And girl, when we got there, when did we start this idea of forming a line and going one after another? Do you remember? Because that was like new.
I think
just seeing the scene, right? So back then a lot of us youth had never flown on a long distance journey before, so we caught Singapore Airlines back then. It was really nice. And we got to Madras, remember that? We spent a night in Madras, and we got to Bangalore. And there started to be two distinct groups forming in these things. There was and ultimately we ended up in the same rooms, like when we talk about teamwork. So we had Bernard room, which no one wanted to be in. not because, it's just because we knew we had to sleep, go to the toilet for the time, very disciplined. And then the other room, which was pretty relaxed, you could go in there, not change, don't take your socks off, So we were lucky. I mean, some of us here were in the same room. So there were 22 boys, 5 or 6 girls, right? But and there was another group following us later. But we had about 8 in our room, and then right next to us was Bernard's room. So in that room was Michael, Jason, Venkat, Sunil, Evan.
That's right.
Evan, and someone else. And Yogi. So these were like the serious guys. When I say serious, they were the leaders. And then talking about the queuing, I'll get to it in a second. But in our room we had Pritesh, who was the leader, and then Bhikkhu, myself, Dev, Rajiv, a few boys that were kind of from interstate, a lot of them, Sanjay, and us. So we used to sleep in. We were like the party room. And so the queuing started because I remember the day one, these guys were up and ready and downstairs wanting to go darshan like at 4:30. We hadn't even woken up. And I remember Venkat and Sunil knocking on our door and trying to break it down. We were all snoring, and then they said, guys, we need to have discipline, which we talked about before we got there, and we had to be part of the team. And the queuing then started, and really, all I remember is in our room, we Tesh up first all the time, and getting us up and heading down, and right at the basement there, we had to queue in a line. So there's 20 odd boys like the military, I mean, like this. And when we walked to the darshan, everyone had to get out of the way because we were looking like a caterpillar. And if you went out of line, someone would pull you back in. So, but it came down to the guys who were organizing discipline, telling the other boys to be in the queue. We did that, right?
It really brought us together.
Yeah, we had Gundam, or Venkat, as you know him now, we used to call him Gundam, being the leader for the boys, and he always used to lead the boys in a straight line, and we always used to maintain silence and maintain that discipline as we walked from our room all the way throughout, and that was something no other group was doing at that time in the ashram. It's something that we started, and then all of a sudden, within weeks, other groups started doing the same thing. And we used to walk past, and we didn't realize it at the time, but we had to walk around the mandir to put our shoes away and all that. And that's when, at that time, there was a World Council that was meeting. And Uncle Arthur was of the Australasian sort of chairperson at the time. And he used to, everyone used to ask him, who are these boys? And then he used to really be really proud to say, they're from New Zealand. From my district. And then people started really taking notice of the disciplines that we were following, and that put a lot of pressure on us. Because we couldn't muck around like we wanted to, and we had to be a little bit more serious about about Swami's teachings and actually practicing them, because then people started observing what we were doing, and if we were just slightly out of line, people would comment. So that brought even more discipline within our group.
I think the biggest payoff of the discipline was it's not a single day that Swami didn't even look at us or just even talk to us. Even on the personal attention we had, and that's what was the biggest payoff of the discipline. And that's when I think a lot of from Swami's birthday. After that, the Christmas comes. A lot of foreigners starts to come in a big group as well from South Africa, Mauritius, and we remember there was a lot of other groups that started to sort of be with us. And there was one Australian guy, I don't know if you remember Daniel, he would always want to be behind us. He said, New Zealanders, because he knows that wherever we are, Swami would always come to us, grabbing our letters or at least giving us some form of attention. And that was the biggest payoff of the discipline. It wasn't easy, getting up, about 4 o'clock in the morning, going to the canteen and preparing before going for darshan and stuff like that, especially in the cold weather. And it's a long day.
I learned how to walk properly in those queues. I don't know if you guys have been to India, and when you have to buy those cheap chappals, what do you call them? Flip-flops, I used to call them. And walking with those flip-flops, a lot of us would just drag our feet, and especially that time in the morning. So I remember we used to stop somewhere where there was a lot of bird poo, and all the boys used to jump around. We'd get us, and the leaders in front would come and tell us to lift our feet up when we walk. And I remember that was quite funny. 4 a.m. in the morning, we had Bernard and Sunil and saying, guys, don't you know how to walk? Walking, don't make any noise. So the discipline, the little small things started to add up. So we started to walk properly, if you still call it walking properly. We had to go to canteen duty, which some of us, we didn't eat the Western food anyway, so some of us had the Eastern canteen, and we didn't know why we were cooking. And it came into the room, which was really bad as well, because people stopped talking in the room. You and I used to talk a lot. But anyway, sorry.
I think the girls also followed similar. So I won't probably repeat the same things that the boys have said, but the girls were pretty much similar. We also got up early in the morning and went to the canteen. Kind of had to follow those disciplines that were set. And we had Chandan and Bennett's sister Teresa with us as leaders for us. So it's really good. It was really good bonding.
In terms of the group, we actually went into two separate groups to Prasanthi because the original group that went, so I was part of the original group, there was I think 22 of us. And then 2 weeks later a second group followed, and that was because a lot of people had exams and couldn't make it before Swami's birthday. And so there's 22 of us originally, and then another 9 joined a couple of weeks later. And but we all sort of mixed really well. Like I hadn't met any of these guys. I knew Jason from a previous trip, but I didn't know Michael. I didn't know Yogi, and we met a lot of these guys for the first time on the plane on the way. And so we sort of stuck to our own little cliques until we got to Prasanthi, and then we're all thrown in a mix into the rooms, and it was just so much fun. It was just so much fun, and like Arun was saying, we were the fun room until one day. Until one day we slept in a little bit, and Bernard got really upset with us, and I didn't know about this, but Sunil came and told us later on. He goes, apparently Bernard went to Sunil and Kunda as leaders, and he said, "Do you know what the other room was doing at 4:30 this morning?" And they're going, What? Because Bernard was really angry and serious, and he goes, "What?" He goes, "They were sleeping." And he goes, "It's 4:30 in the morning." He goes, "There's no discipline with you guys." He goes, "From tomorrow, you're all going to the canteen, you're all going to do some service." So from the next day onwards, from 4 o'clock in the morning, we had to go to the canteen, and we had to peel potatoes and chop vegetables and all that. And then Bernard would join, so we'd rotate between the rooms. So our room would go one day, and then the other room would go for Suprabhatam and Nagasankirtan that day, and then we would swap. But Bernard would just sit there for the vegetable chopping and all that. And it was quite funny, like we weren't allowed to talk at all, and that included people from other countries that used to come and help at the same time. And so sometimes somebody would come along and they would start talking to us to say, "Oh, where are you from?" And all of a sudden they would get a psst. Yeah. And it was just so funny, but then we got used to it, and that silence actually, it was quite important because we didn't appreciate it when it first happened. But then during the interview, Swami actually said this really clearly to us about not wasting time, food, money, energy. And with the energy, he specifically said not to talk, to maintain silence. And so he was drilling in these teachings. So even though it felt hard and silly at the time, he was drilling these teachings into us, and it was just being backed up. So it was really cool. And I think all of us we've just been best of friends ever since that trip, actually. Yeah.
Well, there's one moment I think you guys all remember where our room, we were told to get up early, and there's a guy in a room called Dev. Remember Dev?
Yes.
And we all went down and we queued up, and we were going to go to the darshan, and Dev locked Bernard in. Was that it? Yeah, so Bernard was, I don't know if he was darshan or something, but he was locked in his room, and the boys took off to darshan without Bernard. And I remember the day because, we all, no one checked for Bernard the day. And so, and that's when our room started thinking, oh man, we got to really, toe the line. Because Bernard then sent Sanjay into our room. and took someone else out. Remember that?
He took Anand out of our room.
He took a boy out and he sent one of those tough guys in. Sanjay is a tough guy. I don't know if he still is, but it beat us into place.
It so happened that Anand, I don't know if you know any of them, just had a habit of locking the room. Every time he walked out, he just locked from the outside. Even though it just, I don't know, it was just a habit. Just unknowingly he used to do that, even though he knows that there are people sitting there. And then there's one day that Bernard blasted all of us, And even Anand was right there about, Bernard talked about locking the room. And after finishing, this is Swami, literally playing that as soon as Anand walks out, with all of us sitting there, what he does, he locks the door. This is literally every step of the way. And one of the most hilarious story is, talk about discipline. What had happened is most of us, I think, were the first time that had gone. And Bernard had been there a few times. And, he knows what's expected in the ashram. And, on his own, it's easy, but with the group, it's difficult. So, obviously, he wanted best for us. And, you can understand. And the most soft topic was the food, So we talked about food, and even after having dinner, we used to bring some brunch, and then we used to eat in our room, and that literally fired up Bernard, And it was so funny that Anand wasn't there. So me, Kundam, Sunil, and Bernard was literally blasting us, about the food. And as soon as the thing finished, who walks in? Anand walks in. And he comes with all this packet of biscuit. The first thing he does, he offers it to Bernard. As much as Sunil, Kundam, and myself just looking at each other's face, everything side around, This is literally Swami playing, and you could see Bernard's face was just red hot, But literally you could just see that this is Swami playing. And then as soon as Anand walks out, he locks the door again. On top of that, And this is, literally you could see that Swami is playing, with Bernard. And this is just, there's so much humorous stuff that happened, which was, literally you could see that there was a Swami right behind this whole thing. And
Okay, so Ritesh and Yogi is saying about how naughty these other boys were. We just wait a little bit, because there's some instances in the interview room where this will come out, but we'll get to that.
We all, I don't know, on behalf of all of us, we're so grateful to Bernard, actually. And I know don't take us as we're picking on him, because if it wasn't for Bernard, I don't think we would have been there. And I mean, humor aside, through Bernard's network in Prasanthi, we met Prasanthi Katalman. I mean, he was talks. There were various other people that respected Bernard because he was a professor there. And because Bernard was, he came down. And because Bernard commanded the respect, I think automatically they gave us the respect. And the lighter moments were all with him, because, as boys were hard to put into a room and talk and do things. But I think we cannot forget the amount he did for us at those different events. And all he was trying to do was good for us.
Yeah.
And I think when he was trying to tell us to do things, he knew what was expected back then. And in the end, it paid off. And we have a lot to thank him for post that. Because if it wasn't for someone like Bernard in that role at that point in time, I think it would have been pretty wonderful for us.
I think, if I remember correctly, prior to this 94 trip that was getting prepared, he actually asked Swami to bring the boys. And Swami literally said, he says, come for birthday, stay for a month. And there was very, very clear message. So a lot of the groundwork was done, obviously by Swami, but through Bernard. And that's why, surely Bernard was there. He played a huge role in this whole trip. And it was quite bitter for us with all the discipline and everything, but those who put up with it and everything, Swami paid it off. And clearly showed us what was expected. And, you know, the New Zealand group became the icon. And I think a lot of other groups from the other country, around the country, you know, took on that discipline. And, you know, we were vibrant. Like, you know, Brother Richard said, they said about people asking Uncle Arthur, and which was true. And it's because of that. It was hard, but yeah.
Thank you for sharing the importance of discipline. Now Ritesh obviously answered our third question. So we'll go to a montage of photos put together by Brother Bhikkhu.
I'll just use my natural voice. Can you hear me out there on the last rows? Otherwise, I'll use the microphone, but I'll try and project just the normal voice. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to Swami for the grace of myself being able to be here tonight amongst you all. I want to just give a very brief, just an introduction as to how all this came about. My profession is, I'm a professional photographer. I'm based in Wellington. I've been a, say, devotee for many, many years, long, long time. Swami has come into my life at a time when he chose to have me in his fold. Up to a certain point of my growing up, I was not aware of Swami, but he chooses the right time for you, each and every one of us, as to when we are introduced to him. And from the time that I did come to know of Swami, I'm very blessed to say that I have had 5 absolute miracles that have happened to me in my life and that I have experienced. And when I say miracles, I mean miracles because these are things that are impossible. Science cannot explain it. So I've been very lucky to be in this presence of Sai. Now, as the youth, as they spoke, they were preparing for this trip about a year in advance. And I came into the scene very much about 3 months, 2 months prior to them taking on this trip, journey to Prasanthi. And through Sister Chandan in Wellington, whom I'm very grateful to, and liaising with Bernard Gilliman, it proved that my wanting to be present with the youth on this particular journey as a photographer came true. I wanted to go to Prasanthi to actually document the youth's trip and what took place there and everything else, and taken everything else. Now, at the start of this trip, there is absolutely no guarantee that when I get there, I'm going to be able to achieve what I'm setting out here to do, because there are protocols, there are measures that one actually has to overcome in Prasanthi when you get there. And as in those days, the images that you're going to see, they're all being taken on rolls of film. I shot around approximately 40 rolls of film back in those days, 36 exposures. I think I have about 1,000 images. Today I've only collected here 80, some real key highlights. Now, the time is going to be short, really short, to run through these, because I don't want it just to be a slideshow and you see an image and you pass on to the next image, because each and every one of these images has a very, very powerful meaning. And there are some really, really deep essence of stories behind each image. Even when I took them, maybe I didn't realise. But in hindsight, when I analyse these images now, there are very, very touching images that are here. Okay, to just start off, I decided to project this one up first. This was one of the very rare shots of the group that we took outside South 5, which was our building. Is that right? Jackson, you remember the one where your class went down, was it?
That's very true.
Yeah, so that's outside our South 5 residential building. Now, some of the people in this group are not identifiable to me. Some of the ladies, I think, do you ladies remember some of these people, or are they just add-ons to our group at some point? Okay.
It was the last day, it was our last day.
That was it?
And I think some of the people there, my parents were there.
Yeah. Is that your parents?
Yeah. And I think because there was a group of adults joining,
Right.
leaving, so I think some of them came.
Okay, yeah, I think so. Yeah, you're right. You're right, because I think there's some shots where the buses were there too. Yeah. Okay. Just a note. You know, we talked earlier. A few of the speakers here mentioned this particular trip was a very, very special one. So special that I think nothing like this has ever, you know, happened to most of the people that visit Prasanthi, or the groups that visit Prasanthi. I think the New Zealand group of youth set a very, very good example of what others had to follow thereafter. The discipline that was put in place, at first it seemed harsh. It really was hard. It was, you know, you think, gosh, you know, do we really need to be here? But 4 to 5 weeks in Prasanthi with that discipline, and believe me, being up at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, you had no choice. You had to be in that kitchen. You had to work 2-3 hours, whatever. You had to walk in the line, you know, everyone else could just go in their own pace. No, we had to, you know, take the line and everything. So all of those things had a reason, okay? Because, I mean, at the end of this whole thing, we were blessed from Swami with 4 separate interviews in that one stay. So I think that speaks, you know, so huge. Okay, I just want to say, does anybody recognise the man with the hat on the extreme right of the picture? Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, that's Richard Wallace right on the end with the hat. Just want to say, Richard, for all those people that know Richard Wallace, he was the New Zealand SAE president here. Now, he told me that he'd been travelling to Prasanthi each and every year without fail. He'd go every year, go and visit Prasanthi. Do you know what? It wasn't till the youth arrived that 10 years later, he gets his first interview with us. When we got our first interview, Richard also experienced this first, and he'd been travelling to Prasanthi for 10 years. Yeah. Just goes to show something that was very special. Okay. The images here are not in any particular order, but can I just see a show of hands? I only want a show of hands of people who have not been to Prasanthi yet. Is there anyone here that hasn't had the chance to actually go to Prasanthi? Wow, that's amazing. You've all been there, right? Okay, so next question. How many people did not get to see Sai Gita? Okay, few of you. Okay. Do you all know who Sai Gita is? Okay. Sai Gita is the most beautiful...
Swami's biggest devotee.
Yeah. beautiful elephant. She is so close to Swami. She has a heart of gold. When you are near Sai Gita, the love that emanates from her is just all Swami. That animal, that elephant, is just so blessed and so gentle. She is such a big elephant, such a big animal, and yet, she is so gentle to everybody. And you'll see many pictures of her. I was very fortunate. How everything came to unfold was when we got to Prasanthi, had to get permission. You couldn't take photographs. There was a strict protocol there. No photography allowed. So for everyone that knows Uncle Arthur Hillcott, he was extremely instrumental. I really mean it. Uncle Arthur was a huge support to me, to all of us, but to me in particular too, in that it was through Arthur, his presence in Prasanthi, his huge connection with everyone, with Swami in particular, I was able to get an interview 2 times, 3 times, had a personal interview with Swami's secretary. Swami's personal secretary is who I had interviews with Uncle Arthur sitting with me on talking about the procedures to do this photography. So I was given permission through the help with Uncle Arthur. This is a view from one of the hilltops. I think could be where that tree, that beautiful special tree is, around there looking over Prasanthi. And did you say this can be zoomed, did it? No. Oh, you can't zoom it? Laser. Oh, laser. Okay. Sorry, the laser pointer is on that one? That's it. Oh, okay. All right. Towards the left side, there's a building just lower to the tall building. That is the Punachandra Hall, I think, from a viewpoint of Prasanthi. I'm not sure how much it's changed much today. This was a very special time we all had during, was this right at Christmas time, Ritesh? Yeah, around the Christmas period.
This was actually quite interesting because one of the services we did in the ashram was we helped build this garden, and so we used to go in after morning to dig the gardens. And I can remember Pikupai was a real softie. He complained that he had a sore back or something, so he couldn't dig, and so he got given these big, huge pots to clean that was filled with grease and oil. And the funny thing was, we were making this garden, and they at one point they kicked us out because we probably weren't fast enough or something, and they finished it off themselves. So we're getting a little bit of an ego at one point, thinking, we're doing something constructive in Swami's ashram, and then basically, they kicked us out, and we had a bit of a break. We came back, and everything was complete. And we were at it for a good few weeks, and so this is really nice. Actually, this is right behind our building. So our building's the one in the back.
I'd like to share a story about this garden as well. Very special story actually for me. I was part of the second group that actually went. So I wasn't part of. I didn't actually know till this date that you actually helped build this garden. But I actually had a dream before I left for Prasanthi that I was actually walking in this garden and Swami was holding my hand. And I actually hadn't noticed this garden until a few days while I've been in Prasanthi. And one afternoon darshan, I was walking back and I saw this garden, and it just stunned me that this was the garden that I actually had in my dream, and here was me walking with Swami in that garden, and I was just so overjoyed and full of tears that I just couldn't, hold myself. But yeah, it had really, really touched me that this was the garden that I actually had dreamt about. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Beautifully related. You see, everyone has their own personal experience of what they felt at the time, you know. It's just a photograph, but it can send you back 22 years in time. And Rugby, what's the official tree spot here? This is the tree I think you all know about. Swami, when he was young, he was able to pluck any fruit. This was the tree where Swami, as a young boy, was able to pluck off any fruits and food from that tree. Actually, here tonight, I actually have some leaves from that tree if anybody would like to take a piece home. It's just a very, very small leaf. I don't have many of them, but sure, I think there's enough here to share one little leaf with everybody. I brought it back from India. Statue, very, very beautiful. This was during Darshan time. I had, fortunate enough that the permission that was granted for the photography was 3 days at a time. And so I was able to also do photography during Darshan during this particular time in Prasanthi. This is Swami. Close look at the hand there. I think he may be possibly with his right hand producing vibhuti there for a devotee. This was a very special memory of the boys. Sorry, girls, if you were not in this picture at that particular point in time, but the gentleman right at the back with the white beard, that's Uncle Arthur. And, actually I'm in the picture too, which is really nice. One thing you would have noticed, does anyone recognise that lady? This is Poppy. This is Uncle Arthur's wife, Poppy. Here's a very nice formal shot of the group, which is probably going to be the most precious memory we have. Talk about the discipline that we had. It all was all the way through, from the way you presented yourself, the uniformity in our costume, our traditional white, and do you notice one particular thing there? The green scarf. This green scarf became attention of everyone that was gathered in Prasanthi at the time. Everyone took note of this group of youngsters with the green scarf. I just want to share something. It's been 22 years and I had not unveiled it till today. This was the scarf that we all treasured and wore. I don't know. Yeah, I still got it for some reason. So I have not worn it. It's been in a treasure trove with Swami's stuff that I keep in a box, and that was the scarf that we all carried. This symbolised us as Kiwis there. So that's a formal shot. Now that one there is the canteen. I'm not sure. I would say that's probably the Western canteen. Yeah. Right. Okay. That's the Western canteen. This is some of the ceremony stuff that was performed at the Jesus statue just around Christmas time. Okay. This particular picture is a very powerful image. This is Brigadier Bose. of those people that do not know Brigadier Bose, amazing story of this person, a very, very staunch and close devotee, unlike any. Having met him, I think all of us met him, I also had the opportunity to spend time with him personally during the time I took his photographs. This was taken in his residence. I also did a recorded interview of him. Brigadier Bose was a man, the only man that I've ever met, only person I've ever met and known in my life, who died and came back to life because of Swami. There's an amazing story there. He passed away during a discourse in the Punachandra Hall. Doctors were there, surgeons were there. Brigadier Bose was declared dead. Swami came down, stopped the discourse, came down to the bottom of the stage, everybody cleared, and there is a book written on the whole experience that Brigadier Bose has written about his awakening, what he saw, what had came through in his new life, what he visualized, and what Swami had said to him, and all of that is described in a book. Look, when Brigadier Bose was brought back to life, he went to Swami and he said, Swami, why did you do this for me? Why did you give me my life back? And Swami said to him, Bose, your work on this earth is not finished because you were in your previous life the architect, the engineer of the Taj Mahal. And he was the architect for the Sai Hospital. And when you see the architecture of the Sai Hospital today, it's just like the Taj Mahal in its styling, in its design. So Bose had a purpose to be able to have a second life, to finish his work, and he's a very humble man. This picture I just threw in, just to give you an idea of the contraction, the complexity, the engineering defeat of the youth here, just to hold up their bedding, you know. Can any of the youth identify where this was taken? It is Whitefield. It is Whitefield. It took us a day to clean the room because remember it was full of nothing but dust and nobody, cobwebs, and some monkeys as well. And monkeys, okay. And so that's what we. Okay. On this picture here, this is an extremely powerful image. All you see is a door with a slogan there. But the words written above that door are extremely, extremely powerful. I didn't realise how powerful. This is a photograph. I was given permission to photograph inside the Sai Hospital. And when I saw this, I just stopped and it did something to me. When I look at this picture today, I get emotional. I get very tearful, I get emotional. Sai is the surgeon. Do you know what that means? How powerful those words are. That is exactly what it means. Sai is the surgeon. I don't even know if you can fathom that. He is absolutely the surgeon that operates. Do you know, okay, that is the sign into the entry of an operating theatre. I was fortunate enough to talk to a surgeon in Prasanthi, and he told me how of his experience, how when he goes in to do an operation, and he's got other medical staff with him, he's got junior doctors that are studying and are learning, and they go in to do the surgery in that room. What happens is, he told me, Say comes through during the operation and in his omnipresent form and just takes over the whole operation. That's all very good, isn't it? You know, the patient has had the utmost best treatment and everything, but it left the surgeon in one dilemma. When he comes out of the operation and he has to do a post, report, he has to talk to his students as to how and what happened during that operation, and what level of this was used, that was used. He doesn't know. He can't really faithfully answer it because Say just came and overtakes the whole operation. And so this is why I find that slogan extremely powerful. Shall I leave it at that for now?
Yep, that'd be good, thank you.
Okay.
And we'll see more of the photos.
Yeah, there's more. There's about 80 images in total. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move on. I understand the group was blessed with 4 interviews during the stay. How were these interviews different?
That's a tough question. I'll make an attempt. The first 2 interviews was with the first group that went. So it was 22 of us in that group, and it was boys and girls. The next 2 interviews was boys only, but it was the boys from both groups combined. By that time, everyone had arrived. And so from that point onwards, Swami only took the gents, and he kept referring to us as gents when he would call us for the interview. He would say, "Gents only, go." And so the first interview, Swami was very focused on the summer showers. He would only talk about the summer showers, and when people tried to ask personal questions, he would ignore them. And then if people persisted, he would say, "Any spiritual questions?" And he wouldn't answer any personal ones quite intentionally. The second interview was actually quite interesting because by this time the second group had just arrived, but Swami only called the first group that was originally there, and there was a little bit of confusion in terms of who was asked to go and who wasn't, but only the first group Swami asked to go in, and here it was a combination of some personal questions. Gave us a lot of opportunity to ask questions as well. And Swami talked a lot about the way we live, what to eat, all that sort of stuff. And then the next 2 interviews, because it was boys only, he talked a lot about youth, talked about marriage. Interesting enough, because I think only two of the guys were married, or something like that. None of us were married at that time. And then the last interview was quite interesting because it was the first time he opened up and let us ask very personal questions and gave us really direct guidance about what to do in life, what to study, those sorts of things. So I'll get maybe some of the guys to share some of those things from maybe 1 or 2 of the interviews.
I remember asking in one of the interviews there, welcome Natika. She was there with us in the first group, weren't you? Were you the first or second? Second group. Second group, right. I remember asking Swami a question. He was talking about purity, and I said, "Well, what is purity, Swami?" What was he saying? He was saying, my body is 108 pounds. From 55 years, still 108 pounds. I don't take fruits or sugar. After I get up, 1 glass of water. After bhajan, 1 dry chapati. No waste. I live on your love. I don't even sit. Sometimes when Jaga Rao comes, I sit for a minute, then up again. Body light is purity. So I asked, well, what is purity? And Swami says, no bad thoughts. And then somebody in the group asked, well, can we do this? And Swami said, no. So, that was a bit disappointing, really. So, well, Swami, hang on, we'd like to be like you, Come on. He said, no, sorry, it is a normal body. He's talking about our bodies. We've got normal bodies. But I have purity. I don't eat curds, so that's yogurt out for us, sorry. Rice, milk, fruit. I mean, let alone anything else, these are the things that are supposed to be good for us. The subtle kind of foods. And the group went, no milk, like this, because we're so used to our tea and coffee. He said, too much fat in it. When child is okay. Afterwards, half milk, half water is better. Milk is tamagunu. Coffee is no good. I don't take sweets, not even an apple. I don't want to give people any trouble. So he really started to give us some very practical advice, practical things about how to live our lives. And there's more, but I'll let someone else share.
You talk about sweets. He, back then in '94, said quite clearly that white sugar was the main cause of cancer. He said they used the animal bone powder for the bleaching process. And here we are, trying to trust Swami's words. We all came here and rang the sugar company and find out what they use and this and that. And obviously, you won't get any information from it. But just recently, I had a little video clip that came through. And in America, they actually do the research about how the sugar, the cancer cell feeds on sugar. And it's amazing. They did a test on the rats as well. And there was one type of rats where there was absolutely no sugar diet. And when I say no sugar, that means no rice, glucose or anything like that. And how their reaction was different. And apparently there's one man who actually the doctor gave him about a few months to live. And he took absolutely, a sugar-free diet. And there's no rice, nothing. And he said he's still living. So these are the things that scientists are finding out now, which Swami told us in 1994, that white sugar was the main cause of cancer. Amazing, direct information from the Lord himself. And he quite stressed that jaggery was the best thing you could eat, actually. So a lot of information about food. Also, a lot of stress from what came out of 1990 summer shower. He assured every bit of it, And in fact, to test a few of the boys, he would ask, I remember I don't know if I should name, he asked Abhinesh quite clearly, he said, what is mine? He said, sensitive, Swami. He said, no. And then he would go around and ask, other boys about questions about how much attention they've paid, while we were going through this study circle. And he assured every bit of it.
I think from the girls' side, it was like after the interviews, or on the last interview apparently, the girls were a little bit disheartened because they didn't go to the last 2 interviews, and so they were feeling quite down. So after the last interview, we knew that was our last day actually. So the girls actually, we ended up going to the canteen and to help out again, do seva there and be there. And Sangeeta, she stayed behind in the mandir, and the rest of us were in the canteen. Sangeeta was still sitting there, and then while we were in the canteen, we hear someone come running up and says, "Where are the New Zealand girls? Where are the New Zealand girls? Swami's calling you." And we just left what we were doing and raced back all the way to the mandir, and we were all nicely we didn't know what was happening, we were all just kind of got to line up right in front of the mandir where normally the primary kids sit. So we were sitting right over there, and Swami came, gave all the girls Padma Namaskar, and gave us all like packets of vibhuti and his photo, and obviously had a few words with a few of us. So it was like a really divine motherly send-off for us to go back into our daily lives with that motherly love and live his message. So that was really nice to be sent off like that.
I just wanted to say, share, I'm Latika. Apologies from Raj. I think Raj was in the interview and Swami said to Raj, "You worry about your wife, she's outside." And I'm getting quite emotional, and Swami said, "Don't worry, I'll give her a Padma Namaskar," and that's what he did. And I still have got my sari, and that's the sari I've never washed. It was black and white and red, and I've still got it. And I think Raj was always worried that I'm always outside, so he made sure that he tell Raj, "Don't worry, I'll look after your wife, she's in my care." And that's really special for me. Thank you.